Alright everyone, back at where we left off yesterday at page number 43. Let's take a few minutes to share with the class what did you identify and what did you interpret. Specifically, I would appreciate it if you can identify anything that could have caused an increase in the electricity demand forecast in February of 2021 compared to February 2020. Alright, excellent. So if you looked at the graphs carefully, one thing you could have noticed is that there is a sharp drop in the temperature from February 2020 compared to February 2021 of the following year. And if we recall correctly, it was extremely cold during that storm. If it is 22 degrees Fahrenheit, just to give you some context, everyone, at 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that is officially when water freezes and turns into ice. So if it's 22 degrees Fahrenheit, it's 10 degrees Fahrenheit below the freezing point of water. Alright, so now we are going to look at that same Texas regional electricity overview graph, except this time we are putting the electricity demand forecast overlaid with the electricity production. So with the partner, once again, use the identify and interpret strategy to analyze the graphs of electricity production for 2020 and 2021. Notice and let us know anything that might stick out to you. Excellent. So one thing you might have noticed is the seeming difference between the electricity production versus the electricity demand. Because in February 2020, you notice that the demand of electricity and the production of electricity, pretty much that yellow line and that dark blue line, they stay the same. They're pretty consistent. However, during February 2021, you'll notice that there is a sharp increase in the demand, but there is a sharp decrease in the production. So what we're going to be looking at next in the upcoming lesson is we're going to look at the following. We're going to wonder, why is it that the energy production suddenly dipped down? What energy was the cause for the energy to suddenly spike downwards instead of being able to meet the demands of all of the residents in Texas? Alright, so quick recap. In lesson 3, we spent time reading about an article about an energy crisis in Ohio, and we learned that engineers prevented power loss by preventing short circuits and broken circuits. We analyzed data about electricity supply and demand in Texas, and we noticed a drop in supply during the blackout. We brainstormed about what could have caused that drop in supply. Today, we are going to look at energy sources used in Texas and consider what we know about each of these energy sources. We will be using informational cards to seek additional information about specific sources of energy to help us figure out which source might be responsible for the drop in supply we saw in lesson 3. We rank these sources by reliability, but realize that this criteria can be hard to quantify. So we look at several data representations from 2021 Texas crisis to analyze how each energy source performed. And we will do this using a new tool called the decision matrix to keep track of how well each source meets criteria that we think are important. Alright, so on page 49, what I'm going to ask you to do is the following. So please notice and wonder what you see on this map of Texas. This map of Texas specifically shows all the different types of energy sources that are used in Texas. And what we want you to do is look at this carefully, see what kind of energy sources there are. Is there anything that sticks out to you? Go spend some time on your own, and then we'll share some ideas as a class. Alright, after looking at that graph, what do you know about how some of these energy sources work? Could any of these sources have contributed to the crisis in 2021, and how? be ready to share your thoughts with the class. All right, now that you have taken some time to think about these types of energy sources, we are going to ask you all to do the following with your group. So inspect their energy source cards front and back. There are a total of 8 cards from pages 50 to 57. And then also think about what clues can you find that might help us understand which sources were the ones that were unreliable during February of 2021. Once you have done that, we're going to ask you to also think about what information you think is the most important for determining which sources of energy are the most reliable. And then you will rank these energy sources from the least to the most reliable using whatever factors that you think are important with your group. And you will be doing that ranking on page 59. So on page 59, you are able to do the ranking. There will be a chart on page 59 for you guys to do that. So once again, spend some time to figure out which of these things, energy sources, are reliable, which of them are not, and spend some time to discuss with your group mates about that to determine what you guys think as a group.